Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
Yes, it's me, Egbert. As the new owner of this station, I want to make sure we have the best talent on the air. That's why I've decided to ban all real estate agents and only have real talkers like Brad and John. Here they are, B and J.
You know, I'm going to have a talk with Egbert today because I think that's very uninclusive of him. And I think that we should be open to anybody. We should be, if you're a super left-wing, Democrat, hey, join the club. We don't care. I mean, we're an open group here. We meet you at the door, no matter who walks in the door, with a nice firm handshake and say, "Hey, thanks for coming in. We appreciate the fact you're stopping by." Don't you think?
I think so, but also then we tell them to take their shoes off because we don't allow shoes in the house. And then also, have you told Egbert that I'm getting my real estate license?
Are you really?
No, of course not. What do I look like? I am a rhino with an H though. Because when I don't know what rhinos do, but I stomp my feet and I'm slothy, but that's with an H. That's not just R-I-N-O.
We get in trouble because I talk about this stuff and I mention Tracy Ellis's name and John puts it in his show notes, which he tweets out or Instagrams out, and then we get blocked on their Instagram page. So,
but you know what? It reinvigorated your relationship with the great Brian Nieves. He's out of town. Did you know that?
Yeah, he's at some conference and stuff like that. See, and you know what? I told the story before that before Tracy got on the air, I had some meetings with her. She was, I was trying to help her. I really, honest to God, was trying to help her. And at one point in time, I said to her, I got this guy you need to have on your radio station. I said, Brian Nieves. And she says, who the hell's that? I never heard of him. So like 6 months later, guess who's on her station? Brian Nieves. And he's probably the most talented person on the entire radio station. Not demeaning other people on there, because there are some really talented people on there. He's really good. But and the crazy thing about it is, he tweets me, or not, he texts me that Friday night that, hey, what did you do that put Tracy on the warpath again? I'm going like, you know what? I mean, see, the interesting thing about it is, if someone talks about me in another radio station, which does happen from time to time, matter of fact, Mark Cox used to actually give my name. Sometimes if I'm listening to him and I hear him say something and he's not sure of what it is, and I know that I'm a nerd about stuff, I'll tweet him or I'll text him when he's on the air, and now he just refers to me as his friend Brad, because I think he got in trouble for mentioning my name because I'm a...
God forbid you put somebody else, you give somebody a little bit of shine.
Right.
Hey, my favorite Nieves fact, though, that I don't think you know this.
Go ahead.
He was born on Juneteenth.
Really?
Now, a man who was born on Juneteenth, on June 19th, cannot be criticized for not being diverse enough. It would be like criticizing someone who was born on December 25th.
If you want someone who is really good at what's the term, tongue-in-cheek comedy, when it comes to stuff like that, he's really good at that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Sort of picking apart the people that are wound a little bit too tight and sort of makes fun of them. Okay, the national news has been made by someone here in the St. Louis area who lives here now and is here a lot more than he used to be, and that person is Joe Buck. Do you know the controversy that Joe Buck has started?
No, what's the latest one?
Well, the latest one is I think he was on a St. Louis station. I believe it was either ESPN 101 or he was on Fans 590, and he was being interviewed the other day. And what he's saying is, I don't read this exactly word for word. The headline is, NFL announcer Joe Buck predicts bad story will come out of Super Bowl LVIII. And his quote is, "It won't stay in Vegas." And here's the first paragraph of the story. Many look forward to the festivities to come during Super Bowl week and the game's first Las Vegas appearance, but one NFL announcer wants no part in participating in what Sin City has to offer. ESPN's Joe Buck, the veteran play-by-play voice for Monday Night Football, told an ESPN, it had to be ESPN radio station, it had to be ESPN 101, told an ESPN radio station in his hometown, St. Louis, that he has, quote, no desire to be in Las Vegas this week before the KC Chiefs take on the 49ers. And it's certainly not because he thinks it's going to be a bad game. It's the bad that can happen before if for those for attending. So in other words, he's sending, and he says, there's a lot of logistics. It's a lot of congestion, he told Opening Drive on 101 ESPN. I'm not that way. I'm not looking for the Maxim party and going out all night. It's not just my thing. And then you combine all that with Vegas. Says there's going to be some story. There's going to be something that happens because it's Vegas, and it won't stay in Vegas. It's going to be a big something that happens. I don't know what it is. I have no idea. I just think it's going to be a mess in my mind. Now, isn't this a little bit of Joe Buck, who used to be like the big dude, did all the Super Bowls, did all the World Series, and now he's not doing them anymore? Isn't this a little sour grapes on his part?
I don't know. I mean, maybe he's just offering a reason of why he wouldn't be taking a high-profile role and just underscoring the fact that he's not a Las Vegas guy. I don't know. I'm not sure what his motivation would be.
Would he say something about that with New York City? Because let's be honest, there's all sorts of crazy crap that goes on in New York City.
That's for sure. I get your point.
I mean,
I don't know. I don't know where that would come from. But I mean, to anticipate that there would be some sort of an issue coming out of Las Vegas, is he suggesting that players would be misbehaving or getting drunk the night before or ending up with a lady of the night or something?
The article goes on to say, of course, Buck isn't sure what exactly, quote, the big thing something will be that he's referencing. And he says, but with tons of NFL players and other converging on Las Vegas, a city that the league wanted to stay away from for years until recently when the Raiders moved from Oakland, California, there are some skeptical about what might take place. See, what I find fascinating in this whole thing with sports is to the point where there's exactly right. The reason why there were no professional sports teams in Las Vegas is this professional leagues, the NBA, NFL, NHL, all of them, they wanted nothing to do with Vegas because they wanted to be as far away from gambling as they possibly could. Now they've done a 180. And
what a reversal. What a huge reversal.
Right. And the DeWitts are upset because of the fact that we don't have legal gambling in Missouri.
You're exactly right.
Right.
Yep.
And it's to the point, it's like, okay, now hold on. I mean, aren't you the same guys that kicked out Pete Rose? Aren't you the...
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point, Brad. What a tortured relationship. You go back to the 1919 Black Sox World Series scandal all the way to Pete Rose. And then, but as always, doesn't this just come down to money?
Well, yeah, of course it does, because of the fact that the teams make money off this. And the crazy thing about this is so weird. I can't remember. I get confused. FanDuel. What's the two big ones?
DraftKings is pretty much the leader in that space now.
DraftKings and FanDuel. Which is the one that bought the casino queen? Is it DraftKings or is it FanDuel? One of the two.
I don't know.
One of the two bought the casino, and one of the two.
I'll Google that while we're talking.
One of the two bought Fairmont. Okay, so those two bought Fairmont, and one of the two bought the casino queen. Okay, if you can download the app. I believe if you're sitting in your house in St. Louis right now, any place on the west side of the Mississippi River, you can download the app for whichever one it is, and you can open the app, but you can't place any wagers. But if you get in your car and you drive across the Poplar Street Bridge or the Stan Span or the Chain of Rocks Bridge or the JB Bridge, and the moment you get into Illinois and the GPS confirms the fact that you are now in Illinois, you can place bets. And
you're exactly right. And let me interrupt, Brad. You were right. It was DraftKings purchased the Casino Queen.
And FanDuel is Cahokia then, or not Fairmont. Cahokia is long since gone, but Fairmont was bought by the other one, right?
FanDuel. Yeah, I'm looking that up right now.
Okay, so, and you think about that for a minute. It's like, okay, if I really got the gambling Jones, all I got to do is jump in my car, drive across the river, and my phone works. And I literally can drive across the river. Like, for example, you could drive across the river in East St. Louis, get off there at the first exit in downtown East St. Louis, sit in your car, on the street, place your bets, make a U-turn, get back on eastbound 64, come back across the Poplar Street Bridge, and bango, you placed your bets.
You're right. And you know what? Our friends listening in Kansas City have the same experience. They drive across the state line to Kansas, park on the side of the road, which is surely a safety hazard, place their bet, and then come back over to Missouri.
Right, and it's even easier on the south side of Kansas City because of the fact you don't even have to go across the river. 1 minute you're in Missouri, and the next minute you're in Kansas. I mean, because on the north side of the Kansas City metro, you've got the Missouri River that comes down and forms the border between that part of Kansas and Missouri. But once you get south of the Missouri River, like in the Johnson County area there in Kansas, there's no river. You just, 1 minute you're in Missouri, Missouri, the next minute you're in Kansas. I mean, and to the point where it's like, okay. And the whole thing is, to me, it's to the point where, like, once again, I've said this before, I'm an old guy, but if you were to come to me when I was a senior in high school a long time ago and say, Brad, one day, this state of Missouri, you're going to be able to buy lottery tickets, and you're going to be able to go onto a casino, and there'll be casinos right here in the St. Louis area. And if you want to buy marijuana, you'll be able to walk into a marijuana store and buy marijuana. And someday you'll be able to bet on sports right here in the St. Louis area. I'd be going, yeah, right. What have you been smoking? You know, this is Missouri. That's not going to happen. And it's all happened.
And I think especially with things like internet gambling and things like that, it just surprises me that we know how hungry states are for revenue. And particularly, I mean, you could look at any incident when from Missouri, when federal funding goes away, governments are always looking for ways to pick up revenue. And if you look at a way that doesn't take away from what the casinos are already doing, but enables people to have an app and lose their own money, you know, as much as they want to. Like, it's amazing to me that governments don't participate in that simply for the revenue.
Well, let's be honest. It's just like the communities that put up the red light cameras. And what did they say? Oh, it's not about the money.
It's about safety.
It's about safety. It's like, yeah.
And rear end crashes.
Right. It's BS.
It's about safety and auto body shops.
Right. It's
West County Auto Body.
Right.
West County Auto Body.
It's all about the revenue, you know, because, and see, once again, what's crazy about it is that something that Bill Eigel said the other morning, I mean, really stuck with me. And the reason I mention this, I have been in meetings in St. Charles County, and nothing against Len Pagano. I like the guy. I think he does a great job in St. Peter's, but he does not like Bill Eigel. Him and they are oil and water.
And you mentioned it to Bill on the air.
Yes, and he said he has been in meetings with the mayors and the county executive in St. Charles County, and they've complained about the fact, here we are, the mayors, blah, 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 and in this room, nobody likes you because of what you're trying to do. And remember, he said, but if I brought in the 400,000 citizens of St. Charles County and asked them the same question, they would almost every last one of them would be, yeah, get rid of that personal property tax.
Yep, absolutely. You're exactly right. And that's the chasm. That's the divide between somebody whose entire existence depends on spending somebody's money versus the taxpayer that says, man, I got to write that check and I have to have it postmarked by December 31st.
Right. And the idea being is you're being taxed for something that you've already, I mean, like, for example, if you bought a car, you already paid sales tax on their car, and now you're being taxed for owning the car every year. And the same thing like personal property tax. It's not just vehicles. I mean, if you own a business, they want to tax you on all your business equipment, your computers and stuff like that. I remember when I first had when I first started my business, and I had one IBM PC, and I remember having to pay, like, way back in the day, I think I paid like $130 a year for that stupid computer. And I'm going, okay, what is this? Why do I have to pay this, and to a certain extent, that still exists. If you get audited, if you ever have, this happens where I know the various counties have auditors that go out and they'll go to a manufacturing plant and they'll review all the equipment. Okay, that's a XYZ 20-ton press, and how much would that cost new, and how long have you had it, and what's the depreciation, and blah, 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 that kind of stuff. I don't know. And on that hand, I agree with Bill Eigel. I think it's a terrible tax. But once again, my situation is, and once again, I'm getting in trouble when I say this, you've got certain communities that have, like, for example, I drove down Mid-Rivers Mall Drive the other day, okay? From 70 down, all the way down to 364, okay? Mm-hmm. When you're in the St. Peter's section, in the medians, they have these fancy little planters, and they have these fancy little things.
Oh, they're beautiful, Brad. You don't appreciate the aesthetics?
I don't, because to me, as a taxpayer, I'm going like, okay, why do we need that? Why does the city of St. Peter's have to have that fancy planter in the middle? And if you drive on Mexico Road in front of where the city center is, where they call it City Hall, you've got the same thing. You got fancy planters. There's a center median. I mean, like in Washington years ago, there was a big fight because of the fact that they wanted to put in these center median planters down there. And the goofy thing was to the point where the reason was, and this was an interesting thing. The interesting thing was it was going to be $1 million. They're going to spend $1 million to put in these planters. But the town officials said, well, It's not. We only have to put in $100,000 from our coffers. 90% of the money is federal tax. Well, guess where that money comes from?
Yeah, it still comes from the taxpayers.
Right.
And what they don't know, Brad, as we wrap up here, what they don't know is you can now get a fire sale deal on dicamba. So you can go through the center median and you can do a little spraying of your own, Brad, and the problem goes away.
Part of the thing we didn't touch on with that Taylor Swift article is the fact that she's buying emission credits, which is such a scam.
Well, you know what? If anybody should make up for what she's doing with her jet, it's Taylor Swift.
That's right. Man, I heard a thing on NPR that just completely debunked that whole thing. Maybe we should talk about that tomorrow. Hey, we got to get out of here. Say goodbye, John.
See you guys Friday.
Say goodbye, Casey.
I'm Casey Kasem. Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?